Why, hello there, Jacob. And today, well, we've made it to week 10 of the NFL season, if you can already believe it. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we have officially started the second half of the regular season. And where do we begin the second half of the regular season? Down in Duval to start our 3-game road stretch. So yeah, let's go ahead and break it down. So yeah, the Minnesota Vikings travel to Jacksonville, Florida to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars, and a team that's basically in a state of I really don't know, honestly. I mean, because they have games where they look really good, like the Trevor Lawrence of just a couple years ago here. They're played teams like Green Bay and Philadelphia very tough. And then there are other weeks where they just don't show up, really. I mean, it's just been a very weird time down there in Jacksonville. And honestly, I would not be surprised if, Doug Peterson ends up getting fired by the end of the season, if not, maybe even sooner. But again, we'll just kind of wait and see here. Yeah, it boy, it's definitely a far cry from their playoff win here just a couple of years ago when they came back against the Chargers, down 27 points. And yeah, so yeah. With that said, though, here are some of the key matchups that I'm kind of looking at. The first matchup is defense versus Trevor Lawrence and the offense. Because, believe it or not, the Jags actually have some pretty solid pieces. I mean, Brian Thomas Jr. is turning into a potential young stud already. I mean, he's already an underrated receiver who, when healthy, has actually been really a breath of fresh air for Jacksonville's passing game. Evan Ingram, ever since he's been down there in Duval, has been night and day from where he was in New York. They also have Travis Etienne. And, I mean, when healthy, again, he could be a difference maker, coming out of the backfield, running it in, and stuff like that. Tank Bigsby is a pretty big bruising back himself. I mean, yeah, like, they got enough weapons there to make things interesting and, potentially steal a few games here and there. It's just, I don't know if the coaching's all there. I don't know if it's the myriad of injuries, which, by the way, stay tuned for that one because Trevor Lawrence is on the injury report with a shoulder injury. And that could potentially tank one of my fantasy teams. But again, that's a different story for a different... Yeah, my fantasy this year has been kind of like the NFL season. Very unpredictable. I mean, there's a lot of games this year that have made me go, wait, what? Who won? Wait, what? What? Who? What? Just... Tell you what, though, definitely makes postseason a lot of fun when you have these teams that nobody thought coming into the season end up making deep runs. So, yeah, obviously, if you're the Vikings defense and Brian Flores, the key is to neutralize their offensive weapons and force Trevor Lawrence to panic. Because, well, if the B-flow style of defense, the high-flying speed rush, who's coming where, what's going on, confusing Trevor Lawrence, then we should have a pretty good game ahead of us here. Especially if we can neutralize guys like BTJ, ETN, Bigsby, and Ingram, Those are probably the 4 main weapons you got to really focus on. But, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, try to neutralize that team because what the Vikings could really use, in my opinion, is just one of those absolute blowout type games where you beat a team by more than 17. Because ever since the Texans win, and ever since going into the second half of Green Bay, it has not been... I don't know. It definitely wasn't the 5-0 start that the Vikings had at the beginning of the year here, but I think what happened is the Vikings are now kind of back at the median, because obviously in any sport, regardless of if it's, 82 game, 162, 20, 10, whatever, there's always highs, lows, and mediums. Usually you could take your best game you had all season and your worst game you had all season, toss them out the window, and your team is somewhere in the middle. And for the Vikings, we're kind of at like what I would consider a tier 2. For me, there are 4 tiers of, sports. There's the championship favorite, probable playoff making, like the teams that are more than likely going to be in the playoffs but might not quite be the actual, championship favorites, but could make some noise if they can get an upset or two. That's where I'd put the Vikings right now, in tier 2. Tier 3 is sort of like the fighting for their lives, a sneaky team that could get red hot and potentially make their way through. Kind of like an 07 Giants type of thing, where they just ran the table after getting hot at the end of the season and ran their way to the Super Bowl. But those teams are more or less, just trying to fight and contend for wild card spots and, kind of those 500 teams from like a game or two one way or the other. And then you have the we'll see you at the draft crowd. Jacksonville's kind of somewhere between tier 3 and tier 4 at this point. Granted, it's not like the AFC South has necessarily been a juggernaut division recently, so if the, Jaguars can catch some fire here, hey, who knows, Houston's wounded. The Colts, I still don't know what the hell they have for offensive weapons or who's going to be the quarterback or what's going on. And, and then you have Tennessee, which is, again, we'll see in April. By the way, that's our next opponent next week, but we'll get to that next week. And then, let's see here, Jacksonville, Tennessee, Houston, and Indy. Yeah, those are kind of, again, what I'm saying is the AFC South is still up for grabs, as it usually is this time of year. But with that said, though, if you're the Vikings, you can't fall into the trap, which leads me into the offense here. Their pass rush is not too shabby. They have definitely a lot of, high draft picks on their defense. They have a lot of high draft picks on their defense. Josh Allen Hines, or is it Josh Hines Allen? Josh Allen Hines, the other Josh Allen, as a lot of you may know, was a high draft pick. Trayvon Walker was a number 1 overall pick. So, those are 2 edge rushers that can create some havoc. Foyesade Oluokun, who I think just goes by Foye Oluokun, is a pretty underrated linebacker himself. So, they definitely have a few pieces there in the middle that you have to keep an eye on. And, of course, with Sam Darnold's streak, I guess, for lack of a better term, over these last couple of games, just throwing absolute mallard interceptions, which yeah, it's the Sam Darnold effect, but I think we all knew that coming into this season that you're going to have the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. So, but that's nothing new. With that said, though, you still have your full complement of weapons for the second game in a row now. Hawkinson looked decent. Addison finally kind of got back up going again. Jefferson, still Jefferson. Aaron Jones is solid. Cam Akers is now that nice breath of fresh air running back too. And, even Josh Oliver stepped up and stuff like that too. So you've got the weapons to make this game, easy, at least on paper. But again, you've still got to watch out for Josh Allen Hines or Josh Hines Allen. Again, I'm still not 100% sure. Trayvon Walker and Foye Oluokun are definitely the 3 big defensive pieces that could really wreck your night. So, yeah. Plus, it's also down in Jacksonville, so the weather's going to be probably a little bit warmer than what we're used to this time of year. Granted, we play in a dome, so it's not like it really matters that much, but, Florida heat and humidity is a completely different animal. So, yeah, and lastly, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, and I actually have to do a lastly, because now we have to talk about special teams for the first time in a while. just when I think I can feel confident about something, Will Reichard and Andrew DePaula go down. So in comes John Parker Romo and Jake McQuaid. Oh boy. So, I mean, look. At least John Parker Romo has been in the building. You know, he was here for training camp and stuff like that, so he has a little bit of rapport. But granted, you know, that was back in July. We're now coming up on November 7th. And by the time we play the game, it'll be November, like, 10th, I think? 10th or 11th. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be probably 3 to 4 months since the last time he was really, you know, did anything. The last time he actually kicked in a game was like preseason of 2023. So it's not like he necessarily has a lot of experience kicking in the NFL, but, well, in fact, he has no real experience because this is his first actual NFL game kicking. So, oofta. Granted, Jake McQuaid is a long snapper. I mean, he's been around the league for a while, so I'm not as concerned about that. But still, I mean, I'm just hoping that it doesn't have to come down to a potential game-winning field goal from a guy who's never really kicked that much. But hey, I mean, if he can get it done, awesome. You know, we just need this ship forward until we can get to, you know, the promised land here, until Reichard and DePaula come back fully healthy. Which, again, we're definitely on the quote-unquote easiest stretch of our schedule now, but I wouldn't necessarily say any game is, you know, losable. I mean, like I said, because we have Jacksonville, Tennessee, and then we travel to Chicago, and that's the next 3 games, so it's like 2 out of those 3 are definitely winnable, but, again, we just have to wait and see. So basically what I'm hoping for is just smooth snaps, easy kicks, good motion, and, yeah, just, you know, hopefully we don't have to try to keep settling for 50-plus yard field goals, which then in turn might change up the offense a little bit, but like I say, we'll just wait and see. So yeah, that'll basically kind of wrap up this video. Like I say, stay tuned for that because, well, it's going to be interesting. You know, this is by far one of our easiest games on paper we've had in a while. I mean, Jacksonville is not great. I mean, heck, we took their, you know, one of their left tackles for crying out Betsy. So it's like, it's going to be interesting is what I'm trying to say here. Hopefully we can get it done, because I always hate making predictions because, again, Jacksonville has actually played pretty tough a lot of games this season and then just crap the bed in other games. But so we'll just kind of wait and see. But yeah, that'll basically conclude this video. So until we meet again, this is Jacob. Have a good one.